Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Anjali Tandon, Associate Professor ISID. It is my honor and pleasure to welcome you all to the third ISID National Conference on India's Industrial Transformation towards a Manufacturing Strategy to Navigate Global Shifts. At the outset, I extend a warm welcome to our chief guest, Sri Suman Berry, our distinguished guests, members of the Board of Governors, conference participants, faculty members at the Institute, staff members, and our research scholars. This year, the pleasure is doubled as we also celebrate the 40th anniversary of the Institute for Studies in Industrial Development, a milestone that marks 4 decades of research excellence, policy engagement, and commitment to advancing India's industrial transformation and growth. I now invite Mr. Ajay Shankar to present a bouquet to our chief guest, Sri Suman Berry, as a token of welcome. So, you were saying something? You were saying? Okay. Request our director, Professor Nagesh Kumar, to present a bouquet to Professor Dhananjay Singh. Let us now start the program with the auspicious lamp lighting ceremony. I invite Sri Suman Berry to please light the lamp. I also request Professor Dhananjay Singh to join us, Mr. Ajay Shankar and Professor Nagesh Kumar to join for the lamp lighting. I now request Professor Nagesh Kumar, Director ISID, to make his opening remarks.
Good morning, everyone. Mr. Suman Berry, our esteemed Vice Chairman Niti Aayog and Chief Guest of this conference, Professor Dhananjay Singh, Member Secretary ICSR, and a big consistent supporter of ISID. I own Mr. Ajay Shankar, member of ISID Board of Governors and former Industry Secretary. Father of Industrial Economics in India, Professor K.L. Krishna, recently conferred Padam Shri. Dr. Cristiano Passini, the director of UNIDO in India and the regional office of UNIDO for South Asia. Very distinguished members of this audience and colleagues and friends. It's a privilege to. I'm sorry, I upset something about the computer. Yeah. It's a privilege to welcome you to the third ISID conference on India's industrial transformation, as usual, supported by ICSSR. The conference series was started in 2023 in this very hall, and it was meant to provide a platform to policymakers, senior experts, as well as young researchers, such as all of you, uh, to come together and have a platform to discuss the key issues of industrial development, the challenges that country is facing on its journey towards becoming an industrialized and prosperous country. This year, we have selected 50 peer-reviewed papers for presentation in different competitive sessions. And besides 7 plenaries covering different themes of industrial development. We all feel very proud of the fact that the Indian economy is showing remarkable dynamism and resilience at this point of time in the face of unprecedented trade policy uncertainties and turbulence the global economy is facing. However, as in today's papers you would have seen, Niti Aayog's recent statement said that jobs is becoming an important challenge, job creation. And in that context, I think industrial development, particularly manufacturing sector, is something we need to pay attention to. And in ISID, in all our work, we have this conviction or a belief that without uh, industrializing the country, the path to 2047, the Viksit Bharat vision, would really not be possible, because we need to find jobs and decent jobs, those covered by social protection, for all of these 8 to 10 million people who join workforce every year. India is a very youthful nation, and so we need to create jobs and income securities for these teeming millions. The India Industrial Development Report that we launched at this forum last year shows that manufacturing sector has the highest backward and forward linkages of all productive sectors. So that means that the job creating potential, besides the direct jobs that manufacturing creates, indirect jobs through backward and forward linkages of this manufacturing sector are the highest for any productive sector. And so manufacturing sector holds the key for the structural transformation that of Indian economy that we have been waiting for, because agriculture still sustains about 45% of our workforce, which has to change. People have to move from low productivity jobs they are stuck in to higher productivity jobs in modern sectors like manufacturing and services. But services have their limitations in producing as many jobs as we need. I mean, they are giving dynamism to the economy, but manufacturing sector could be another engine which drives growth as well as job creation. And over the past decade or so, the government of India has really turned attention to manufacturing sector, harnessing its potential of India for the manufacturing sector through a variety of interventions, starting with the Make in India program, the PLI scheme, Atmanirbhar Bharat, the semiconductor mission, and all other things. And the manufacturing mission, which was announced in the budget this year, is being worked upon at Niti Aayog, and I'm sure our chief guest will talk about some of it. So the positive outcomes of these interventions are beginning to be visible. So in just the space of few years, India has emerged as the second largest base for manufacturing or assembling and exporting of handsets, for instance. And now we are working backwards, the backward integration of the supply chain, going right up to the semiconductors. So things are beginning to happen in solar PV modules, for instance. Next year, we are hoping to become self-reliant for meeting our demand and maybe some export surplus as well. But in the recent months, I would say, since April, there have been lot of disruptive trade policy developments, and you know what I'm referring to. I'm referring to the Trump tariffs and all the different announcements which have come around, which are highly disturbing. They are shaking the assumption, all the assumptions of trade that we knew. For instance, the MFN, the most favored nation, which is the bedrock of multilateralism, has been thrown out of the window. We used to talk about in the multilateral trade negotiations the concept of special and differential treatment, where developed countries will give non-reciprocal preferences to developing countries, like GSP. Now, the most advanced economy in the world is demanding special and differential treatment, that you give to me my exports zero, and I will charge a high tariff, right up to 50% as on India. So these are the, I mean, very disturbing developments, and they affect India among all other countries, especially because United States is a very important market for all our exports, about 18 to 20%. But the labor-intensive goods, which provide a lot of jobs to young people, the exports of labor-intensive goods, are very highly exposed to United States. So if the share of United States in India's exports is 18 to 20%. For labor-intensive goods, it is upwards of 30%. So around 33% of labor-intensive goods go to one single country, that is United States. And if they are threatened or impose 50% tariffs, then the effect it would have. And so that is why we need to deal with these challenges through policy measures. And the other thing which is happening is weaponization of trade. The access to critical minerals or rare earth magnets, for instance, is even technicians working, they were called back. And so all of these challenges that we are facing have the possibility of affecting our exports and economic prospects. But as I said in the beginning, we have a lot of resilience in Indian economy, and I am sure we are able to surmount the challenges like all other previous challenges and come out stronger. We need to act on multiple fronts, and NITI is providing a lot of guidance to government on these matters. So I'm sure harnessing the full potential of our domestic market, which is large and growing, diversification of our export markets, especially for labor-intensive goods, through finding markets in Europe, East Asia, and other countries, especially now that we have a free trade agreement with UK. We are expediting negotiations with the EU, and we already have FTAs with Japan and Korea, which we should leverage because we hardly export any labor-intensive goods to them, and that is something which is what we should be focusing on. So this conference provides a very timely platform for discussing some of these policy challenges that we are facing currently, and come up with some workable, actionable policy actions, policy measures, or policy responses that government could consider. And we hope, to submit them to you, Suman, once we have assembled all of the discussions and prepared a report for your consideration and for implementation by the government. Although this is the third time we are having such conference, I mean, this is our third annual flagship conference, it has been made special by a number of things. One is, of course, this change context, as I was talking about, that threatening issues or challenges for our economy, economic prospects, and trade. The second is that ISID has just entered this month in its 40th year. And so for whole year from now on, we will be doing a lot of activities, some distinguished person lectures, and some conferences. In March, we are going to host an international conference. So there will be a number of activities for the whole year, October to October 26. And so this is this today's conference is marking the start of our anniversary celebrations. In the evening today, we have a special session to launch these celebrations and also announce the launch of a new professional association of industrial economists and researchers, which actually young researchers at this platform requested ISID to host. And so we are going to launch that or announce that this evening. And another reason why this conference is special, even though it is the third one, is because we are able to get you this time, Suman. The previous two occasions when I approached you, you had prior commitments, and of course you could not do anything about. But you did send one of your members to inaugurate one of them, and this time we are able to have you here. So that makes it, very important, very special for us. The top policymaker of Government of India is with us to inspire us and encourage us in what we are trying to do over the next 3 days. So thank you, Suman, for making it in spite of your very heavy schedule of commitments. I know how busy you are. And I'm also grateful to Professor Dhananjay Singh, Member Secretary of ICSR. As I said in the beginning, always a big supporter of ISID. Anything that we want to do has his blessings. And so his presence here is very encouraging and very reassuring. And Mr. Ajay Shankar, he has been an important pillar of strength for all our work because of his deep insights into industrial development and his passion to see India become an industrialized nation. So we are happy, sir, that you are here with us this morning. Apologies from our chairman, Mr. S.K. Mishra, who, as you know, has always been presiding over these conferences in the past. This time, he happens to be a bit indisposed. His doctors have advised rest to him. He wanted to come, actually, till yesterday. He was getting ready to come and join us. But since his doctor did not allow him, so he has to. But he has sent very warm regards to every one of you, and very special warm regards to the chief guest. So he called me to convey this to you, Suma. So with these words, I welcome you all once again, and we have many important speakers, so I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Kumar, for this comprehensive opening address. It really sets the tone for our deliberations through the days. Next on the schedule, we have special remarks by Professor Dhananjay Singh. So can I take a moment to speak a line just to introduce you? Can I do that? So, Professor Dhananjay Singh, although not much of introduction is needed for Sir, is member secretary of the ICSSR. He's a distinguished academician in the field of literary and cultural studies and has taught English studies at the GNU. He's also the president of Asian Association of Social Science Research Councils. I welcome you, sir. So he just might set the screen for you.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Thank you.
Would you need the platform?
I think fine. Thank you. Good morning to this August audience. It's my proud privilege, Honorable Mr. Suman Beriji, Honorable Vice Chairman Niti Aayog, Mr. Ajay Shankarji, member of ISID board and former Industry Secretary, Padma Shri K. Krishnaji, Nagesh Kumarji, Director ISID, my several colleagues I see here, Dr. Veeramani from CDS, my colleagues and old friends from JNU, I could see Dr. Das and several others, Ajit and everybody in the audience. It's a proud privilege and a learning experience always. I was really happy to be here last time. As was told, I come from literary culture studies and therefore these are all experiences to know and learn. All that I know in the context of industrial transformation and the work that we produced with the conference last time and those wonderful outcomes and policy suggestions of it, which I had an opportunity to go through, partly, of course, and in a historical context, if we understand this industrial transformation, and since I come from literary studies, industrial development in the West, right? If I look at works of Charles Dickens and others, of course, while it alleviated poverty to some extent through development, it also brought massive divisions. Of course, class divisions in Europe. It brought poverty to the colonies. So England became developed at the cost of the colonies. America and Canada became developed at the cost of wiping out the natives from the lands. So we have the model of industrial development, of course, a linear industrial development, 18th, 19th century, thought you have enlightenment, reason, and scientific progress that would lead to a development, and all other countries, of course, in the post-colonial times should follow the more developed economies. Well, that doesn't help, otherwise you will not have discourses of sustainability. So you start with scientific progress and you come to 1917 and 80s where UNESCO says that we need to have some discourse on sustainability, and then we are in a sustainability era. So when we talk of industrial development and industrial transformations, India being the leader of Global South, of course, and we have a different model. We have had a different model of industrial development. We were quite developed in terms of our share of the global GDP till the 18th century, as you talk about in your last report. And which was inclusive development. And if you look at some of our texts, early texts, Kotale's Arthashastra, for instance. So you have Varta, trade, industry. Well, Kotale did not have a specific term for manufacturing because it was understood that, of course, is an integral part of agriculture and manufacturing in the villages and the cities that he talked, or towns that he talked about, of inclusive development. Viksit Bharat 2047. The Honorable Prime Minister, Niti Aayog, talk about inclusive development, a development of all, not only capital-intensive industries, but labor-intensive industries, skill-intensive industries, as Dr. Nagesh Kumar talked about, the challenge of employment, of course, agriculture employing almost 54% of the population, and yet its contribution to the GDP or what you call, sorry, its contribution to the employment, of course, and the challenge with the industry. If you look at from a literary cultural perspective, and if I actually link it to the Arthashastra, then of course, and something which is reiterated also in your speech and in the report of the last year's conference, that, well, I mean, there has to be enough emphasis on entrepreneurship, on local industries, on MSMEs. And so there has to be an integration, of course, of high machine and technology using capital-intensive industry to actually local entrepreneurships and MSMEs, and of course the newer kind of industrial avenues, of course, with semiconductors and etc. They talk about. We have to have industrial transformation, industrial development, which is guided by both dharma as well as artha, is integration, obviously. I mean, Kautilya, of course, in Arthashastra talks about minimum price to be put on deforestation. At that particular point of time when we're talking about climate resilience and the climate problem today, and agro-based industries. So even if we talk about the fact that, as you said, that more and more agricultural labor force will transform to industry, I think this is also at the same time important to see that agro-based industries are encouraged, so that there is a minimum gap that remains between these sectors. I must say that with the support of the government, especially Ministry of Education, ever since I joined ICSSR and the increase in the grant for ICSSR, it has been possible for us to support research, and we actually made a decision when I joined in 2023 that rather than actually supporting and funding research in whichever area that one is working, which we also do to some extent, we prioritize areas for research, evidence-based research, empirical-based research, and also theoretical research, and therefore we launched collaborative research projects under the name Vision Viksit Bharat. And currently, of course, there are 172 research projects at ICSSR on various aspects of industrial development and industrial transformations. And these, of course, studies, and we also launched the longitudinal studies in social science research for the first time. And some of the longitudinal studies are, of course, towards industrial transformation, especially MSMEs. For instance, there's a longitudinal study on women-led micro enterprises, which is undergoing right now, or women-led startups in textile industry. Several such projects that are being supported by ICSSR. So main themes, of course, are MSMEs and technological integration, which includes AI, blockchain, digital twin, specific manufacturing sectors like textile, automobile, defense, handicraft, entrepreneurial ecosystems, Startup India, Atal Innovation Mission, and targeted skill development, PMKVY and ITI alignment. So these are currently the focused areas for research at ICSR, supported by ICSR, and where ICSR actively engages through several experts. When we have early career researchers doing this research, we have also sort of I shouldn't call it monitoring, but sort of skill enhancement in terms of their research potentials. By and large, as I said, if I can give you a sense of thematic sort of integration of the research that ICSR is currently focused on industrial development and transformation. As I said, MSMEs, manufacturing, and specific industries, which are based in specific settings. If I can give you some examples, so social impact of making in India, ease of doing business is for social good in Telangana, or MSME sector stands for clean energy in Delhi NCR. MSME through fintech solutions, this is empirical study for Haryana state. Textile-based MSMEs in Assam. These are some of the examples that out of those 172 research, which is currently undergoing with support from ICSSR, and as I said, technology, AI, and supply chain industry is a second broad theme for research, which I can give you some example. One example: implementation of blockchain technology to enhance transparency, traceability, and quality assurance in the supply chain of South Indian agriculture industries. So these are examples. There are studies going on entrepreneurship, startups, and financial inclusion. For instance, the entrepreneur activity in startups. In Northeast India is one of the chief main projects that are being supported, and rural entrepreneurship in Kashmir. So these are some of the examples that I could give you. One, of course, longitudinal studies in terms of skilling the workforce, longitudinal study on effectiveness of ITIs and IMCs in aligning vocational training with industry needs. And a lot of study on the government schemes, PM Kaushal Vikas Yojana, of course, developing a skilled workforce for Industry 4.0. And it also includes the manufacturing in the defense sector. So to reiterate that I'm very happy to be here, and you're really proud of the achievement, of course, at ISID, and then the fact that this is one research institute which is completely focused on industrial development and transformation, and it happens to be one of the priorities. We at ICSSR, of course, we are equally committed to getting data-based research on the agriculture sector, the service sector, and the industry sector. And in fact, we launched impact assessment of the 31 schemes of the government, and the results are coming, of course, and we are in the point of publishing, and we'll, of course, as Honorable Vice Chairman Niti Aayog is here, so I think we would like to also present the findings of our studies to Niti Aayog. In fact, this was one suggestion where we made a presentation to the parliamentary committee about all that ICSR has been doing, and one suggestion, of course, on the parliamentary committee was there. That this all should be presented to Niti Aayog, the outcomes of our research. It gives me pleasure also to announce today that only yesterday we came with an announcement on inviting applications for organizing conclaves and discussions on the GST reforms, the next-gen reforms, on the overall impact of them, especially the MSMEs. And so there are several initiatives also, as there are young scholars all present here. There's a lot of incentive on developing or enhancing the capacities of doing research, which of course involves the cutting edge, newer research tools that would be important for young researchers to produce quality research that would be good for the country and globally and also locally. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful being here. Thank you.
Now it is my honor to invite Sri Suman Berry to deliver the inaugural address. Sri Suman Berry is Vice Chairman Niti Aayog in the rank and status of a Cabinet Minister. Sri Berry has been a Global Fellow in the Asia Program of the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars at Washington, D.C., and a non-resident Fellow at Bruegel, an economic policy research institution in the Brussels. He is also a member of the board of the Shakti Sustainable Energy Foundation, New Delhi. So I invite you for the inaugural address. Would you need the platform?
I hope not. Well, I am somewhat challenged, but I won't need this, so I'll put this down so I can. Is that okay? Oh, yes. Okay, fine. Anjali, you didn't mention that I was a former boss, and that another former boss, Rakesh Mohan, is in the audience. So let me say it's a pleasure to be on the platform with Sri Ajay Shankar, who has been a source of knowledge and inspiration ever since really I got to India a quarter century ago. It was interesting to hear from Sri Dhananjay Singh all the many things ICSSR is up to. It's an important institution. There's so much focus on STEM and technology, all of that. But as we know, social science research is very important to understand behavioral change. So it's and that really what we're talking about is behavioral change. And of course, Dr. Nagesh Kumar, who has been a fixture in thinking about industry and industrial policy, both here in India and also with international organizations, and I think was the person who set up the UNSCAP office here in Delhi. But apart from the people on the dais, I would also like to acknowledge and to felicitate Dr. Krishna. I happened to be in the hall when he was awarded his Padma Shri, but also Professor Goldar, who I think always brings a fresh perspective to the way we think about not just industry, but also the data that supports many of our hypotheses. And I'm pleased to see that Dr. Vidya Mani is here, and I've already acknowledged Rakesh Mohan. So this is a high quality audience, and I am being followed by Ajay Shankar, who will catch me out on the things I say and the things I didn't say. What I'm going to begin with is some prepared remarks, but I will conclude, and I hope not to exceed my time, with some broader observations which follow on the context that Nagesh Kumar painted, and also where we are right now in the Honorable Prime Minister's third term, and with the clock ticking on Viksit Bharat. So let me also say it is a pleasure to be here to kick off the 40th anniversary celebrations of ISID. So over the past decade, India has rebuilt the foundations of its industrial economy, invested in infrastructure, improved regulatory coherence, and strengthened digital and logistical backbones that connect producers to markets. And India now ranks amongst the world's most dynamic investment destinations. Let me also make the point, because it's a point I make to international audiences, but I should make it to a domestic audience, that we are doing extremely well on inclusive growth. Some of you may remember that in the Arun Jaitley lecture, the Honorable Prime Minister, said that without growth, there can be no inclusion. Without inclusion, the growth is not sustainable, or words to that effect. And recent judgments by the World Bank, they've confirmed in their country economic memorandum that we have been growing at an average of 6.5% per year. Of course, you know that we're the fastest growing major economy. But as measured by consumption, the World Bank also judged that we were one of the most inclusive countries in the world. A lot has gone into that. Part of my responsibilities as Niti Aayog is to, as it were, supervise what we do on the Sustainable Development Goals, and the whole range of interventions in infrastructure, in social protection. Yesterday at a UN meeting, we were told that the update of the calculations on social protection suggests that India has been doing much better than previous calculations. So we're starting from a good place. But here we are to talk about one cylinder that isn't firing as much as we would like, and that is manufacturing. And let me just, reference was made to the National Manufacturing Mission, and it was mentioned in the budget. It has actually been assigned to NITI, but as it were, the cabinet paper is still under preparation. But let me just provide a larger framework for how we see the issue, and then come to my more specific observations. Firstly, we do see clusters and the creation of competitive industrial ecosystems at the state and regional levels as being key. India's industrial success will not be built in Delhi, it will be built in our states and districts. And therefore, we must move beyond a uniform approach and craft strategies that reflect each state's distinct endowments, but I would also insist, as for example is the case with the US, that clusters are not necessarily restricted to states, and whether we have a mechanism for bridging clusters that cross state boundaries, I think that's a kind of role that may require a different kind of form of governance through initiatives such as the State Industrial Development Reviews and the National Manufacturing Mission. NITI is partnering with states to identify their comparative advantage. And second, the deepening of domestic value chains in India is a second priority, and India cannot depend indefinitely on imported technologies or fragmented production structures. And I would say the National Manufacturing Mission advances on Make in India as attempting a greater integration across various initiatives. The next phase of reform must focus on supply development, standards, and skill ecosystems that enable small enterprises to scale and integrate into global production networks. The transition towards technology-led and climate responsible growth is a third priority areas. The industries of tomorrow, such as green hydrogen, electric mobility, semiconductors, and advanced material, will define the next industrial revolution, and India's challenge is to lead, not to follow. To China in this role, and I mean, my broad assessment is that we can learn from China, but our path is likely to be different for reasons I'll get into in a minute. Exactly how it will be different is not very clear to see, and to return to the comments made by the Secretary ICSSR, there's a real intellectual challenge, which is that research inevitably has to be about the past. But if your assessment is that the future, because of AI, because of what's happening to the global trading framework, maybe is very different from the past, exactly how you learn from the past, your own past, to come up with policy for the future is a non-trivial task. I fully endorse the importance of research, but I just wanted to say that researchers should not feel disappointed if policymakers don't immediately seize on the results of their research as being the path, because they have to not only deal with the political elements, but they also have to anticipate. And I think it's artists and politicians who are much better at peering into the future than technocrats like myself. Okay, now with that out of the way, what are some of the puzzles that I think face us, or issues, not just puzzles? And first, while I think this particular conference is focused on manufacturing, it is ISID is an institution dedicated to industrial development, and I'm just wondering whether you give enough attention to the other parts of industry, construction, mining, etc., because they might be just as important for both employment and for productivity including the productivity of manufacturing, as is manufacturing. As I say, it's appropriate to pay attention to the problem child, the sector that's not, performing, but that should not be to the exclusion of everything else. The second point that I would make is that if there has been any sort of continuity in India's policy goals, one has been, of course, to reduce poverty, and we've done splendidly, I would say, on that. Since the Planning Commission was set up in 1950, it has been to restore manufacturing to its, to the role it played before, as we were reminded, before the imperial era. And I think policymakers have diligently followed the prescriptions of technocrats. I mean, firstly, we were told it was the commanding heights of the economy, then we were told it was trade policy reform, then they were told, not we were told, we were the source of this, we were told it was labor market distortions. And yet, if you consider this the right metric, the share of manufacturing in value added has remained stubbornly fixed. And I just want, since Nagesh is also on the Monetary Policy Committee, I just want to advance a hypothesis that we've been playing with at Niti Aayog. And it's not only India, it's South Asia as a whole, although Bangladesh may be a bit of an exception, which is it possible that we are facing some form of Dutch disease, and so that the either from workers' remittances or the combination of workers' remittances and our tech exports, I don't have a satisfactory explanation for why we should be competitive in service exports but not manufacturing exports. But as you know, Dutch disease economics works essentially through labor markets. And so since we are in a room of scholars, I would just say to people thinking about the, as it were, persistence of our lack of success in raising the share of manufacturing and value added, I think since we've tried a lot else, it may be worth looking at macro explanations as well. And in this formulation, I'm, reflecting my own early experience working on Latin America, and the Latin Americans, very much have a theory about crowding out via the real exchange rate. And part and parcel of that is that in addition to what might be happening through the structure of the balance of payments, that if you have an overextended fiscal sector, that also is inimical to the rise of manufacturing. So I just wanted to toss that out. And then I think the other issue is, so why are we really interested in manufacturing? And here I think there are several points of view, both on the possibility and the motivation. On the possibility, of course, there are clear differences with the point of view of Ajahn Panagria, who argues that since we're such a small part of global trade and manufacturers, it shouldn't be very difficult for us to raise that share, and therefore export-led manufacturing growth we should not dismiss, and the point of view of Raghuram Rajan and people like Danny Roderick, which is to say that premature deindustrialization is a fact of life. It reflects the relationship between increases in productivity in manufacturing on the one hand and the elasticity of demand for manufactured products on the other. And so I think looking in a somewhat more nuanced way at exactly why we want to support manufacturing and the cost effectiveness of the interventions that we undertake to support manufacturing, be it PLI, be it subsidies, etc. And whether, in that sense, we have deep enough pockets to compete with China, who's, which still has significant resources to its west. So I throw these out as research questions rather than as critiques, because it is national policy to, and indeed NITI is the custodian of the national manufacturing mission. My final point, perhaps, would be, and this would be whether India's own experience suggests that the Lewis model is the right way to think about our structural change and structural transition. The Lewis model, as you know, argued that that the marginal productivity of labor in agriculture was low, and that essentially there would be a kind of a steady shift of labor to the higher productivity manufacturing sector. As we see over 50 years, that's not what's happened. And equally, what we are seeing is a fairly vibrant agriculture, particularly where animal husbandry and horticulture are concerned, less so cereal production, but also a lot of conflicting signals about the role of women in the agricultural labor force. So just to look to, as it were, a simplified, not growth model, but growth identity, if India wants to raise its growth rate from 6% to around 8% over the next decade to become an upper middle income country, rather, if you like, naive way of thinking about is that if you can get women in the countryside to join the workforce, and if we can, in all kinds of ways, raise the overall productivity of labor of all kinds, because you can't get higher wages without higher productivity, well, that's going to generate the kind of growth boom that China enjoyed. And I think it is significant that China's growth boom took place when it was at the stage in its demographic transition that we are at now. So I've taken more of the time allotted, more than the time that was allotted to me. I appreciate the opportunity. I respect the work that Nagesh supervises, but since he also now wears a macro hat, I thought that thinking of manufacturing in a more general equilibrium way is an agenda that the scholars in this room might want to take up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for those inaugural remarks. They remind us that manufacturing is not only about production, but there are many other dimensions attached to its expansion as well. On the agenda, next we have the launch of the edited book which is published by Springer. May I request the copies of the book to be brought on the stage, and can I request our colleague Dr. Shatiki Roy to join us on the stage, who is the co-editor? Yes. Please have the books. Please have the books. So in the meantime, I'll just read out the title of the book. It is FDI, MSMEs, Digitalization and Green Industrialization, Challenges, Opportunities and Policy Lessons for India. Springer for ISID. Moving ahead in the program, I now would like to invite Mr. Ajay Shankar to make his closing remarks. Mr. Ajay Shankar is member ISID board and former industry secretary, Government of India. Mr. Shankar is a distinguished retired Indian administrative service officer and has made significant contributions to the fields of economics, industry, and trade in India. This is for new scholars, so,
No, I presume I do. But let me begin by, I think, congratulating Nagesh Kumar for the third event of its kind, a long overdue attention to this important area, and also for now beginning the celebrations of the 40th year and for the release of this book. I have always found listening to Suman very stimulating because he provokes thought and is not very comfortable in mouthing just platitudes, which tends to become fashionable as we become more successful. I'll take your advice very seriously and talk about a few things which I think are important and which I would like to convey to you because I don't know whether you'll be there for the next session. So I will pick up the point you referred to towards the end, and that is the real exchange rate. Now, to me, it is a mystery why the policy-making elite of this country has not seen the importance of the real exchange rate. And as a policy instrument, and because of the real exchange rate appreciation in this country post-reforms, we have underperformed in manufacturing and industrialization. The fact that we have done so well is a tribute to our entrepreneurs and to the strength of the economy, because if you look at the hard numbers of the real exchange rate appreciation, our performance should have been much worse. And it is often talked about China, and you've been to China, and we've learned a lot from China. But the one fact which is not adequately understood by our elite is all these stations, Japan, Korea, China, succeeded in the export market by a very aggressive policy of artificially depreciating the exchange rate. They built up enormous reserves. Now, today I would not argue for doing that because the rest of the world will not permit it. But nobody can quarrel seriously with a conscious policy of not letting the real exchange rate appreciate. So I would suggest that as the most important challenge. Is easily done. I'm convinced that there are no macroeconomic consequences which should follow, which should impose any costs on the economy if government and the RBI agreed that they would intervene in the market gently to see that there is no real exchange rate appreciation. My request to you, please try the governor, persuade the governor RBI. The second point, and that's a more important point, and it's a political economy point, and we technocrats have a modest role there. But for a variety of reasons, we have a long historical tradition of favoring the consumer over the producer. So to just drive home this point in a very dramatic way, we have the PLI scheme, and we consider it a great success. But the underlying premise of the PLI scheme is that there is a cost disadvantage to manufacturing. And so the PLI is an artificial way of making good that cost disadvantage. Now, why can't we address the cost disadvantage frontally? I have yet to see a serious policy debate that these are the points where we have a cost disadvantage. This is what the political implications are of undoing it, and let's do it. We need not do it overnight in shock therapy, but surely we can do it. But the political elite has to recognize that there is a trade-off between consumption and the present set of consumers and job creation and future prosperity. So the power sector, where we first met when I was active in that sector, we all recognize that cross-subsidy is a terrible thing. So in the entire world, manufacturers in India paid the highest tariffs. China, they paid the lowest. USA, they paid the lowest. The Electricity Act said this should go. The Electricity Act is over 20 years old, it hasn't gone. Because the political understanding that high industrial tariffs knock at jobs is not there. Again, the whole GST reform, there is no discussion of bringing petrol and diesel into GST. It's the intrinsic to the whole manufacturing process, all of business. So I would seriously urge that we generate a serious discussion on the cost disadvantages of production, of job creation, and what needs to be done incrementally to make sure that this cost disadvantage is undone. Many of the younger people may not be aware, but in 91, our per capita income was the same as that of China. In manufacturing, we were at par. Technology, we were at par. Now, today we believe that they are knocking at the doors of the US, and I'm not really seeing the ambition that we will catch up with China one day. I wish to see that ambition. I wish to hear people say that we can do it and will do it. But the core of that would, the beginning of the process would lie in undoing the cost disadvantages and creating the market incentives for job creation, technology development, increasing scale. Now that's another area where we have a serious problem, and that will be my final point, that we believe MSMEs are, the holy sacred thing. They create jobs, they have dispersed employment, etc., etc. And one of the reasons we have done poorly in labor-intensive manufacturing is that pre-reforms, every product which was labor-intensive was reserved to the small-scale sector. Mid-90s, we lowered import duties, we opened up the economy, but we did not do away with small-scale reservation. So everything that was labor-intensive, which was being made in India, that industry disappeared. Until date, we haven't got it back. So in the MSME sector, the fallacy is that small is beautiful. The fact is that even for India, small is not beautiful. You need scale. And one example of this mistake was that when, towards the time I was leaving government, we opened up FDI in retail. And a condition we imposed for IKEA was that you will source 30% from MSMEs. Now there's no way you can source from MSMEs and run a global supply chain. So this, and the whole MSME sector, we have a good session on it later on, labors from the disadvantages imposed where there are incentives for remaining small and very little incentive for becoming big. And nobody in the world does that. That you are encouraged to remain small. And a small anecdote, and I think that be the final anecdote. We were on a holiday in Nainital, and somebody was selling very nice these rhododendron squashes and so on and so forth. So my wife asked him, "Can't we buy it in Delhi?" She said no. And then he said, "I don't want to grow. I'm content with life. When I grow, I have so many headaches, and all those headaches people will remunerate, which will come if you become large." So I will end here saying that we are at a sweet spot in our evolution. We can really take off, but it requires confronting difficult issues and more than that, generating public discussion on those issues and persuading the political leadership that that's the way to go. And I know you have a very difficult job, so all my best wishes are with you. And I always envy people like you who have to get government to do the right things, having tried it for many years and rarely succeeded or succeeding with great difficulty. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. As we come to close the session, may I request my colleague Dr. Sharendra Huja to please come and present the memento to Sri Suman Berry. It is. Indeed it is. Yes, please present the memento to Professor Dhananjay Singh. please present the memento to Mr. Ajay Shankar. Thank you, Dr. Huda. May I request the panelists to please come forward for a group photograph before we disperse. And for the audience, I'm making a quick announcement. We would reassemble here in the same place at 11:30, which is for a session which is being chaired by Mr. Shankar, and we already have distinguished panelists in the hall. Thank you, everybody. Please join us for a cup of tea, which is served right outside the auditorium. Our volunteers will help you to guide through.